Now, I would like to bring up the man whose vision Progressive Democrats of America is. And when I worked on the Kucinich campaign in '04, we all ended up at the Democratic Convention. And we knew that John Kerry would be our nominee and that the progressive candidacies of Dennis Kucinich, Howard Dean, Sharpton, Mosley Brown, they were all, you know, they were done. And we knew Kerry wasn't going to make the war an issue. And most of us who understood that the Supreme Court had selected Bush by stopping that count in Florida because Al Gore actually won, they wanted to continue this war. We couldn't understand why the Democrats wouldn't make the war an issue. We knew we would lose if we didn't make the war an issue because we knew that the war was killing our economy. And that was a fiscal problem if you didn't get the moral problem about the war was killing people as a way to do foreign policy and as a way to fight terrorism. And that was never, ever going to make America safe. Well, we knew Kerry was the nominee. Tim Carpenter gathered the progressive delegates in Roxbury. He said, we're going to Roxbury because that's where we're going to make our stand. And we had Tom Hayden do a 2-hour speech about the history of progressive movements in America. We had Medea Benjamin speak. And by the way, she's been on our board from the beginning, and she's the one who stood up and talked about drones and Guantanamo Bay. And Obama said that woman's voice needs to be heard, and I'm going to cut her some slack because she's right. Medea has been with progressive Democrats right from the beginning because her anti-war voice is so strong. That is progressive Democrats, but the man who brought us all together, whose vision it was, wasn't going to be here, but he is here, and I'm bringing him up here because you have to see him to believe him. The fastness of his brain, the brilliance of his organizing, and his radical inclusivity. It's why Tom Hartman and John Nichols and Jim Hightower and why Lilly, it's why we're all here, because Tim Carpenter is the best organizer in the United States. I want you to hear from him right now. Tim, come on up and just talk a little. Yeah, come on up and let us thank you. Tim Carpenter.
Thank you.
And I'll come in and get Jamie to say I'll give the $2,000 check in the beginning. We'll do the money after you talk for a few minutes.
Okay. I want to thank him too.
Well, you shout him out.
Thank you, everybody. I know I stand between you and some great Indian food, so I'll be short. It's very difficult to follow a cast like that tonight. I can just thank you. It's not often you get to come home. I grew up behind the orange curtain. As a young person, and 31 years ago, we began marching and calling attention to San Onofre. And as we're celebrating little victories tonight, San Onofre Unit 2 is shut down indefinitely. You've heard from everybody tonight, and I will make my remarks short. There are a few people that I would also like to just acknowledge. I think Mimi covered it all. We're coming back and asking for more money, so get your wallets ready. We're coming back for that. But before that, the first person at Roxbury who stood up, and I asked him if he would do a money pitch. He said, well, I got to write a check first. And I asked him if he would think about that, and he came up later and wrote the first $1,000 check for us, and that was James Cromwell. I want to acknowledge James and thank him. He was with us at Roxbury. He's with us tonight. There are so many of you as old friends that are here tonight, and one of the most important things are new friends. The strength of any political movement is our ability to expand our community and to include those who have not been part of us. I'd like to ask tonight those of you for the first time, this is your introduction to PDA, to just simply wave your hand so that we can welcome you to the PDA community, because the strength of PDA and our community is to welcome you. As you've heard tonight, we are not a traditional organization in the usual sense. You don't get a copper penny, a secret code, or a special tent to join Progressive Democrats of America. We're a community that believes, like you've heard from the speakers tonight, that a small group of dedicated people working both inside and outside the political system can bring about real change. Whether it be at the grassroots, whether it be at city council meetings, or whether it be risking arrest, or if it means getting our president's attention, as Medea Benjamin did, we believe that working both inside and outside the Democratic Party as an insurgency As Tom Hartman said, for those of you who may be squirming a little bit, yes, we do love the Democrats, but we can do a whole lot better. We need to elect a progressive Democratic majority. And your witness here tonight to join our community gives us strength that tonight, while our president did bring about an Affordable Care Act, and we thank him for that, Linda, the fact of the matter is that over 47,000 Americans will die in hospitals in this country because we refuse to give them medical care. And we have a president that has turned his back on single payer. And it is our responsibility to remind the 72 members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, no more talk about a public option, no more talk about whether or not we're going to make the Affordable Care Act. It's time as healthcare as a human right. It's time for this country to stand up and hold our elected officials accountable, as John Nichols said. Because tonight when we gather, we're still spending $1 million per soldier in Afghanistan. Our U.S. military is still deployed in Afghanistan tonight as we gather. And yes, we have a lot to celebrate and we have a lot of work to do. So I want to thank Linda, because it's at these moments when we expand our community and we strengthen ourselves, not only in number, but in witness. Because when you leave here tonight and you pick up a Healthcare Not Warfare sticker and put it on your car, Beverly Hills will rock tomorrow like it never has before. And just as we left the San Fernando Valley with Russell Green and the community out there, California will continue to mobilize. Many of you may not realize that just this month alone, over 210 activists, as Mimi said, took to their congressional offices, not to demonstrate, not to say that we didn't want political change, but to say we demand political change. We're not coming as lobbyists. We can't compete with the lobbyists. We're here to educate Congress, and we're not going to leave. And 210 of you went to your congressional offices, and I ask those of you to join us next month so that 350 of us can go to those congressional offices. And those that have the power within you that are here tonight, that can not only write a check, but to put a couple zeros behind that check, help us grow this movement. Help us put 450 activists in every congressional office and another 100 activists in every U.S. Senate office to say, not only is it time to end this war, not only is it time to bring about health care as a human right, but it's time for our community to stop turning its back on those that so desperately need us. To stop talking not just about the middle class, but as Tom Hartman and Jim Hightower and others have said, it's time to talk about the 50 million people in this country that are poor. It's time to talk about the fact that this month, our Congress will cut more money from the food stamp program if we remain silent. It is our responsibility to join Jim McGovern and to take that fight to our congressional offices. So while I have some personal struggles over the course of the next couple of months, I may not be with all of you and out there in those streets, but I will be with you in spirit. And I thank Linda tonight for this opportunity. And I thank those of you who are new to PDA, because without you, we are not growing. And because you're here, we are growing. And because of your witness tonight, and because you'll put a bumper sticker on your car, and you'll give up your lunch hour to go to a member of Congress, and those of you who have the power to write those checks, we will grow this movement. There are little victories. Not only is Michelle Bachmann heading for an indictment, but we have it within our grasp to elect Ed Markey to the U.S. Senate. What would it be like to have Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey in the U.S. Senate, who's committed himself to take the amendments that Jim McGovern wrote to overturn Citizens United? We don't have to wait 10 years. We have the strength in this room to move this movement. So as I step back, I want to just take a moment to thank those of you who are part of our PDA community. Mimi mentioned most of them, most of the PDA staff. But I want to thank my brother, my sister, and my wife, Barbara, who oftentimes don't come to these events because you always have to firewall your family. Politics is always personal. But when it becomes one and the same, tonight is one of those special nights for me and my family. And I thank you for everything. And Linda, I thank you for opening up your home. I thank Lily Tomlin for standing up and coming out and joining PDA. And I thank all of you tonight for being part of our community. And finally, in closing, another special friend, and I'm not going to mention everybody, but another special friend. In closing, is somebody who understands the inside-outside strategy, who stood with us long before there was PDA, but understood healthcare, not warfare. And that's Blaise Bonpane, who's in with us tonight. And I thank Blaise for being here tonight. I thank Lila Garrett for her leadership. But I look for the youth to carry this movement forward. And I thank you, Linda, and those of you that can write those checks. I know Mimi's going to come up and ask you to do that. And I thank you again, James, for being that first person. Thank you, Mimi.
Thank you, Tim. Tim Carpenter. Tim Carpenter. Tim Carpenter.